with Kyazma Consulting. I'm a senior consultant here. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I've been doing Salesforce administration for over 3 years now. I've got several certifications including Sales and Service Cloud Consultant, Advanced Administrator, and Developer. I work with organizations with 1,000+ users, as well as organizations just with a handful of users. I've worked in highly secure areas such as healthcare and banking. I've worked with several call centers. So I've had a pretty good variety of experience in my Salesforce career. And today we're going to be going through approval processes, and hopefully we'll give you some information that will be valuable to you. What we're going to do is I'm going to go through and demonstrate an approval process and how it works up front, and then we're going to go through and create an approval process step by step so that you can see how that's done. And then towards the end, I'm going to open it up so that we can see who has questions at the end. We'll just open up the line, and if you have any questions, you can just ask them and we'll go through and answer them as we're able to. So with that being the case, let's get started. I'm going to share my screen here, and if you have any concerns, please just use your chat window and send a chat, and we'll address those if we can, if you have a technical problem. Otherwise, we'll just wait and address those during the question and answer session at the end. Okay, so today we are going to start by logging in as one of our sales users. So we're going to go down here to find users, and we're going to log in as our sales star, Dusty Bottoms. And Dusty has been working on an opportunity that the process in his company is that when an opportunity hits the negotiation review stage, then it needs to be submitted for approval. Get the sidebar back here. Okay. Sorry, going around in circles here. Okay, so I'm going to change this ownership so that it is owned by Dusty or not. All right, let's make this simple. Okay, omni-architectural. So I apologize about that. We'll go down here to the opportunities. We're prospecting. And so what we're going to do is we are going to change this so that we can see that it's at negotiation and review. And so we're going to submit this for approval. So once that's submitted for approval, an email is going to be sent to Dusty's manager. So saying that we've got an email that says prospecting, the name of the opportunity is waiting for approval. It gives us some information about it. Stage is negotiation review. Close date is 12/30/12. Amount is $13.76. So there are a couple of ways that we can approve this. One of the ways is that we can just reply to this email, and in that reply we can just type the word approve, or if we look here in prospecting, we log out as Dusty and are here now as Lucky, his manager, and we go to that same prospecting, we can see that there was an approval requested from Lucky Day. I'm going to go into my chatter, and you can see in chatter that this Dusty Bottoms requested approval for this opportunity from me. So we've got the information there that I've included in that, and I can either approve or reject that from here, or I can approve or reject it right there in the opportunity itself. So if I go down here to the bottom, we've got the approval history. I can reassign it to someone else. I can approve or reject it. I'm going to do it from right here. Looks okay to me. So I'm going to approve that. And once that happens, then we can see here that it was approved by Lucky Day today at 9:07 a.m. or 10:07 a.m. or my current time. So if we look at we've got it, so an email goes out saying that this opportunity has been approved. We can click here if we want to go to this. This email was sent out to Dusty Bottoms to let him know that that approval was given. So what we're going to do is, that's a very, very simple approval process. What we're going to do is we're going to go through and build our own approval process. There are a couple of ways to go about it, and we don't need to look at an update right now. There are a couple of ways to go about it. So what we're going to do is go into the Force.com home page, and creating approval processes is done by going to the Create section, Workflows and Approvals, and clicking on Approval Processes. So you can see that approval processes are done by object. Right now we've got one for opportunities. That's the one that we just went through. We're going to create one on the license object. So in order to do that, we click on the new approval process. You can, there are two types of wizards that you can use to create an approval process. If you just need a very simple one-step approval process, you can use the Jumpstart wizard, and literally it is as simple as this right here. Give it a name, choose which email template you're going to be using, and then select criteria fields for how it's going to enter the process, who's going to be the approver, click Save, and then that's pretty much it. So that's a very, very simple approval process that you can use by using the Jumpstart wizard, or we're going to use the standard setup wizard, which is a little more complex, but it gives us a lot more flexibility and options. So we're going to give this a name, license approval process, very original, and click Next. So use this approval process if the following are met criteria. So we can either use criteria to meet, meaning we select a field, say that it equals, doesn't equal, starts with, or we can use a formula and determine if a formula evaluates to be true, then it can enter the process. This is a much more complex way of deciding what can enter the process and what cannot. If you are able to just use criteria, that's the easier way. If you can't accomplish it with criteria and filter logic, then filter logic is 1 and 2 or 3, as you can see here, that type of thing. Or you don't need to have filter logic, but we're just going to do a simple entry criteria here. We are going to use the status field. So when the status equals, and we've got a pick list here, so application pending, when it equals that value, we want it to be able to enter the approval process. Now the next approver is determined by, we've got here, and we have some options. We can either use the manager of the owner, or we can create a new hierarchical relationship field, or we can use the approver field of the license owner. We're going to use the manager here, and that's going to be the approver field of license owner. Now, record editability properties. That means when the default for what happens after a record is submitted is that the record is locked and cannot be edited. Now, administrators, since they have the edit all and modify all permissions in their profile, and any other user who has modify all on this object will be able to edit the record whether or not it's locked for editing. Now, other users who do not have that permission will not be able to edit that unless we specify, one, either it's not to be locked during the approval process, which, depending on your business process, you may or may want to do that. The reason they do lock it during the approval process is so that it doesn't change and the approver can see what's actually being requested for approval. Then once it's approved or rejected, it can be unlocked so that it can be edited further, or in some business use cases, the record is to remain locked once it's been approved so that it is captured what was actually approved. So we are just going to leave it at the default. Administrators only can edit the records, or we could say the administrators or the currently assigned approver can edit the records during the approval process. We're just going to leave it as is, click next, and then email approval assignment template. So we need a template. What we're going to do is we can create a template by just going to My Email Templates. We're going to open this in a new tab, and we're going to create one just really quick, very simple. It's just going to be a text template, and since we are on the license object, we want to see the license fields. And so we are going to say we want to see the custom fields. We want to see the date. You can see that it automatically puts the value in there, so that all you have to do is click copy and you can paste it right in there wherever you want it. We also want to see the status. Copy and paste. We're just going to put these down here and we'll rearrange in just a minute. We want to see the amount. We're just going to say, please approve license. And we're just going to call this license approval request. We're going to make it available for use, and we're just going to save it right there. Again, very simple. So we go back to our other tab, we say approval template we want to use. We're going to choose that license approval request we just made at the available fields on the approval page. We want them to be able to see the amount, who it was created by, the date, status, and display approval history information. In addition, we want to see if it's been attempted to be approved before, if it's been rejected, and we can say that we allow them to see it only from within Salesforce.com, or we can allow them to see it from Salesforce or externally from a wireless-enabled mobile device. We want them to be able to go mobile, so we're going to click Next on that. And then the initial submitters, we can make it so that it's the creator, the owner, or any of these groups. We're just going to say that the owner can submit it. So just the license owner. We're going to add the approval history related list to all license page layouts. And we're going to allow them to recall approval requests if they wish to do that. That way, if something changes in the situation, they can recall that. Since the record is locked, they can recall that. That will unlock the record for editing and allow them to be able to make changes to that and then resubmit it. So right now we've created the approval process, but we don't have any approval steps in that. So I'm going to say, yes, I'd like to create an approval step now. So go and an approval step. So name is initial approver, and it's going to be step number 1. So do we want all records to enter this step, or we can make it so that they enter the step only if the following criteria is met? Otherwise, we can approve it. We're going to say every one of them should enter this step. Automatically assign user selected earlier, the manager. We can assign it to a queue. We can automatically assign to an approver, or the approver's delegates may also approve this request. So my manager or anyone he approves to delegate, if he has an assistant, let's do that so that he can delegate that if he wants to. And I'd like to create a new approval action for this step now. And so we can do an email alert like we did before, a field update. And we're going to, let's see. So we're going to create a field update and say go. So license approval given, or we can just say, just say license approved. And we're going to say the field to update is, we want to say approval given is true. And then we're going to do a save and new because we want to do one more field update. So we're going to do license approved status. And we're going to update the status field. And we are going to specify a value that it is approved. So we're going to save that. So we get our first look at the entire approval process here. So we have different sections here. We've got the definition detail. We've got the names, whether it's active or not. Now, one thing to make sure of is that it does not activate the approval process automatically. You have to activate it before it will work. That's one thing that trips up a lot of admins, is that they forget to activate the process before they try and use it. So make sure that you are activating that before you go ahead and try and use that. So we've got the approval assignment email, we've got the template that we selected, record edibility, administrator only, entry criteria, so the application status equals application pending. They can recall it, and initial submitter's license owner only. So the initial actions, we're just saying lock the record. And we actually want to add an existing. Actually, I want to see this really quick. Okay, so approval steps. We can see that the license approved. We changed the status to approved. We updated the pick list to true. And once they submit it, we want to add a new field update to change the status of license, group status. We're going to say pending. So we're going, I just hit the letter S and it jumped right to status there. And right here, awaiting approval. So that means that it's in approval mode right now, waiting to see if it's approved or declined. So we're going to save that. So every time the record is submitted, it's locked. If the status is awaiting approval, if it's approved, these things happen. We can put other items in here that say when it's rejected. Let's do that. We could also do an email update, sending an email like we had in the first one to the approver saying, please approve this. It's automatically going to be put there in chatter that they need to approve this. What we're going to do is we're going to add some rejection actions here. So we're going to do a field update, and we're going to say license. That's me trying to spell here. License rejected. And we are going to have status there. Apologize about that phone. Well, I hit silence it. So status, we are going to say it is rejected, if that's the case, and then we're going to save it. So we got the actions here, approval steps. If they reject it, then go there. So the final approval actions or final rejection actions, we can add those so that if we add multiple steps here, then we can have it go through step 1. We can do a new approval step and say this is going to be step 2, escalate to SVP. We could say, and then go on to say all records should enter this step, or only enter this step if the following criteria are met. Let's say that the amount is greater or equal to $5,000. Then it's after it gets the first approval, and if it's more than greater or equal to $5,000, then it's going to have to go through this. So assign to a queue is automatically assigned to an approver. we're going to say, go to a user, and the user on that is going to be Lucky Day, the SVP. So we could assign it to a queue, and we could require either that unanimous, all of them approve it before it's approved, or the first one out of that queue to respond approves it. We also have the approvers delegated down here, and then what should happen if the approver rejects this request? We can say perform all rejection actions and all final rejection actions. So that's what we would have happen. And approve some steps. Nope, we're going to do that later. So we can press go there. And so we've got our rejection actions. So let's see, add existing. So if we get the final rejection, we've already created this with the field update. So license rejected. We're going to have that. Click save. And the final approval, we're going to add another existing field update, and we are going to say, let's see, license approved. We're going to do both of those. All right, so we've got several steps in here. We can make this as complex as we want. You can have up to 40 steps in each section of this. You can have 40 steps in the final rejections, 40 steps in the final approvals. So it can get extremely complex based on your business needs. So we're going to go with this for right now, and we are going to, actually one thing I wanted to show you before we go in and activate that is this is a very handy tool called View Diagram. This gives us a visual representation of what's happening. So we can see that it enters, we start, they can recall it, and the record is unlocked. We've got the initial submission. You can see over here that it gives you approval process properties. We can see that license approved, status pending, record is locked. If it's approved, it goes on. If it's rejected, then the field update happens. License rejected, record unlocked. You can see we can go through here and see all of these steps from top to bottom, and we've got a map over here that gives us an overview of what's happening in there. So if you are a visual person and you want to see what's going on, or if things are just not working the way you want to, then you can take a look at this and try and figure out your logic, if it's working the way you want it to, whether it's working as intended, and we'll just close that out now. One thing I do want to mention here is that you can add or remove steps, and I'm talking whole steps here, not necessarily actions within a step, until you activate the approval process. Once you have activated an approval process, I'll just give you an example here. I'm going to do this in a new tab. Let's go look at the approval process for opportunities. So let's edit that. If I were to try and remove a step from this process, I would not be able to. I cannot, notice it does not give me the ability to remove a step, whereas I can remove steps here or add steps. So once you've activated it, you cannot remove steps. It's pretty well locked in place. All you can do is change what happens within a step, or you can clone it, which creates an exact duplicate, and then deactivate this old one and make changes to the new one that you've just cloned, and then activate the new one. So either one of those are available as an option. So we're going to activate this, and we can go through this license approval process and see how it goes. So let's do this. Actually, let's take some time here to see if there are any questions. So I'm going to take everyone off mute, and let's okay, so everyone's off mute now. Does anyone have any questions that they would like?
Wouldn't that be funny though, if he did, and you like fought with him like 2 days before, and he had been like planning it?
By the way, you are not on mute anymore, so be aware of that. If you've got background noise going on. Does anyone have any questions?
Or she was just being nice.
Yeah, but why? Am I
Feel like being nice?
by telling me that she's praying for me? And she didn't just say I'm praying for you. She said I'm. And if he really was,
are there any questions?
I don't even have anything.
Okay. Well, the approval process that we just created would work just like the one that we demonstrated in the first place. And so rather than take your time and go through the one that we just created, and since it works just like the one we did up front, and since there are no questions, we're just going to wrap up the webinar for today. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to go to our website at kyazmallc.com and click Contact Us. You're welcome to call us. Our number is on the website there. We'd be happy to talk to you or answer any questions that you have. Feel free to check out our blog. We do blog about various Salesforce topics and hopefully provide some useful information for you there. But if you need anything, please reach out. And I appreciate your time today, and we will talk to you again on the next webinar.